What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our mock draft. We're going to be mock drafting teams on Yahoo. You're with Justin Henry, Dan Titus here. Bruh, it's about that season. It's been that season. We got a less than a week till the start of the season, but this is the perfect time to start mock drafting because we're starting to see some roles evolve. We've seen some preseason action. The hype is real, my man.
The hype is real, and it should be. We got Wemby potentially overtaking Jokic as the number one pick. We got news from the Sixers and Joel Embiid in his maintenance program that's looking ugly. Paul George escaped a pretty gruesome injury with only being a hyperextension. Man, there's a lot of news and narratives coming around here. So, I'm curious to see how this starts to affect the draft boards, with most drafts happening this weekend.
Yeah, and if you guys are mock draft, if you're drafting this weekend, obviously position matters in your draft. Category league versus points leagues matter. So make sure you understand your league settings. We're going to be doing, I believe this is a category draft. It looks like a category draft here. But yes, obviously understand your league settings before you head into it. And also, just I'm going to say this, get the players you want, man. Get the players you want, because at the end of the day, we got a long season and shit happens.
Shit happens. And I feel like at this point, you're not really good. No one ever wins their league in the draft, right? So you always got to make sure that you just have like a core foundation of like the first 5 picks that are rock solid. Try not to draft injured players because it only just reduces your risk of getting out to a hot start. And then, yeah, man, you got to be flexible. Make sure you're hitting the waiver wires and cutting dead weight when it makes sense. Don't overreact in week one, like people tend to do in fantasy football. Yeah. It's like, yo, this guy is trash. He's off. And then next thing you know what I'm saying? Someone else's trash is another person's treasure. So, yeah, man. So what's your strategy here? What are you picking at? You're picking at
what number? I got the 9th pick. You and the Cameron avatar. You got the 5th pick. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like with this 9th pick, bro, I'm playing the board. I'm looking to see who falls to me, because I think a lot of times here at the back end, like I think there's a very good consensus who the 1 and 2 is. Obviously, you mentioned it, Jokic, Wemby. It's kind of like if you got 1 and 2, you have to go one of those. But I feel like in like the 4th through the 12th pick, there's a lot of variance, and it depends on what draft you're in. So I'm in this 9 spot, kind of feeling out who you let slide to me.
So I think you're gonna have a choice of. Oh, let me get up in this draft, man. I think you're gonna end up having a choice of Joel Embiid's gonna fall to you if you want him.
No, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Nah, but I think you're gonna end up with like a Trae Young, potentially Jason Tatum decision to make. Maybe you get Tyrese Halliburton. That would be nice if he fell that far. I did a mock draft last night with some folks from NBC, and Halliburton fell to like the 10th pick when I was like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. But I also got Luka Doncic at 5, so I was like, this is just going to be a weird draft. Sometimes it bees like that, though.
Yeah. Well, it depends, it depends on who, because you play with some people, right? And they don't care about the build. They just want to get the best available player. You care about some people who are like, I'm punting. I got this bulletproof strategy to win my league. I'm going to win my 7 categories every week. And then you got some people like us, and it's like we have key players that we're trying to draft, key players we're trying to avoid. So I think there's a mixture, and it depends on, I would say, the savviness of your league, who's there, and you can even see it down here on like the ADP, right? Like we'll see some of these guys are ranked here, and then we'll see like Luka's ranked at 12, but the ADP here is 3.9. So you kind of got to navigate through some of the landscape here of like just randomness and fantasy. I don't know, man. I see some landmines here that I hope I get to avoid.
Yeah, I like the 5th spot because I think it's a good place to take. I mean, we'll see how the draft board falls, but I'm definitely eyeing Anthony Davis with the 5th pick. I think he's going to be in for a big season, man. And with all of the controversy around injuries and him always going to the locker room and all that, like he played over 70 games last year. And I don't know, I feel like how much longer are we going to have a run at this window of him and LeBron James? And we know what we do know is that when AD is healthy, he's a top 3 player in fantasy. So I think he's a great person to build around. If you're talking like totality of what can he do in fantasy, there's not many things.
Let me ask you this, because I go into my drafts, and a lot of times I end up getting a guy like a Anthony Davis, or I feel like everybody deals with injuries, or everybody deals with, positional things happen. But it feels like in the first two rounds, I tend to like, I try to take on like the highest ceiling, but it almost feels like in basketball, because it's such a long season, an 82 game season, you almost have to like play it a little bit safer with your first two picks. How do you feel about it? Because there's a few players in here. You talk about Wemby. There was the concern about him being injury prone when he first came out. You actually have injury prone players in Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis. You get Trey Young, who's dealt with ankle injuries. Like there's a lot of like injury risk here. Are you avoiding the injury risk players, or are you just saying I'm getting the best available talent?
I think I'm going for best available talent because injuries, you can't predict injuries, man. If we could predict injuries, we'd be a lot richer
Yeah.
and we, you know what I'm saying? Jokic goes number one.
Jokic number one, Wemby number two.
And we up. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna do as I said. I'm gonna get Anthony Davis here.
Fifth pick, AD. So avoid saying bye to the haters, the injury prone label. You're taking him anyway.
I'm taking him anyway because I think I can build. He's a person that I feel like is so versatile that it doesn't matter who you pick in the second round. So because he comes with so much injury risk profile, I'm gonna try to get a guy that's known to play, 70 plus games that I don't have to worry about. We'll see how if that transpires. But I have a feeling like KD might slide that far in the second round. Maybe Chet Holmgren. I might be interested in him. We'll see how I play. Ooh, Joel Embiid goes at 7. Okay.
Joel Embiid 7. I wanted Halliburton there at 8. Doesn't look like I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna try to build this thing out.
As I said, you're gonna get Jason Tatum or Trae Young. Let's see what it do.
Normally I like to go with high assist players, high volume assists. I'm actually gonna take my boy Harden, man. I think I'm gonna go Harden here.
Ooh, I'm not mad at the pick.
A little bit on Harden because I'm coming back with another pick. So
I think Harden's a good start because you're getting the points, the assists, the high free throw percentage. He's actually pretty good at defense too. Like he'll get like 0.7, 0.7 blocks, maybe 1.2 steals. I think he's in for a big year, especially with what we know about Kawhi Leonard and his load management problem that's going to be happening. He's not even practicing with the team, so there's no chance he's going to be ready.
Like passing on the star power of like Steph, Anthony Edwards, Tatum. Sometimes it's a tough move to make, but you got to remember this is fantasy and we're trying to win categories. So at the end of the day, like I think maybe I could have took Steph and I would probably have been in a very similar position, but there's also a chance like one of these 3-point shooters can come back to me when you got LaMelo, you got Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, Steph. Like there was a lot of available talent. So I locked in Harden for the assists and the usage, especially like you mentioned with Kawhi, potentially like sitting out some games at times.
At times, he's going to be missing. I mean, I think we'll be lucky if him or Embiid play, more than 50 games this year.
Damn, that's a tough thing to say too, bro. Because you want to see those guys on the floor, but unfortunately, that's the nature of the game. I'm gonna go with my cheat code right here. I would have took him in the first round, but I knew he would slip to me. I'm going Chet, baby.
Ooh, going early.
I really like Chet this year, man. I feel like he's super undervalued. I think the scoring is going to increase this year. You've kind of already seen it right now in the preseason. It looks like he's taking on a new role right now. And then we know the defensive numbers are going to be there for Chet. So, yeah, I'm kind of all in on like Chet as a top 15, top 12 asset in fantasy. I think he's going a little too far down the board.
Yeah, I feel like Chet is going to be a good draft pick. I mean, you know what he can do for blocks and for rebounds. He's an efficient shooter. I think we'll see more of that this year. While LaMelo Ball lasted a lot longer than I thought he would.
Man, he almost slipped down back to you.
I know. That's why I was like, "Yo, what? Y'all really gonna let me do that?" All right, all right. I'm liking Scotty Barnes here for my second pick. More so for what I was talking about before of like trying to match AD and lock up those steals and blocks as best I can early on with people that don't really hurt you in any category.
Yeah.
And they just made my decision easier for me because Brunson was going to be my backup plan. So I'm going to go Scotty Barnes here. Also like his try eligibility, you know what I'm saying? Shooting guard, small forward and power forward. So get some versatility there too.
I just talked about Scotty Barnes, man. I love that pick. I think it's the one thing about it, obviously, he doesn't do like anything great, but if he does take on a bigger role with this Toronto team, you're probably getting even more of a steal here in the second round. So,
I mean, watching him last night, man, he was doing dribble pull-up threes, and I'm like, what was this in your game? So maybe we might see that next ascension in him being more aggressive offensively because I think that's the one downside is like, can he get up to like 22, 23, 24 points per game as like the main guy for that franchise? And we'll see.
And I think you can tell, like, when you're drafting with somebody or in your league, you can kind of tell expertise level, right? Because it's very easy to go build and say, you know what? Oh, first round, I'm taking Giannis. Second round, I'm taking Steph Curry. Third round, I'm taking LeBron James. Like, you can go chase the names, but in fantasy, remember, this is a category league, so you got to make sure you're building your roster to win categories, not to have the best name value and all-star team that you could have.
That's right. That's right.
In this third round here, man, we're going to start to see some of the more valuable pieces that aren't names, right? We're going to start to see some of the guys that maybe aren't all-stars, but will help our teams. Who are you eyeing here in this third round that could be like kind of sneaky value here? Like maybe that you feel like being a little disrespected when it comes to the rankings and ADP?
Oh, you about to see my
So you about
boy,
to see.
my
Maxey,
boy.
huh?
So I'm thinking because not only because of like what I saw in his ascension last year into an all-star, but with all the news around Joel Embiid trying to try to being healthy for the postseason. Paul George already hyperextended his knee. He's going to be reevaluated in a week. So you don't know how long that timeline really is, but I assume that they're going to be cautious. This whole regular season is about Tyrese Maxey and how he can raise the floor for the Sixers squad. I mean, we could be looking like a Damian Lillard like leap here. So yeah,
Man.
I'm with it. I'm with it now. I think Tyrese Maxey moved up from. I just did my latest rankings. I moved him up from the third round to a mid to late second. So
Steal.
yeah,
I think Maxey's going to be absolutely incredible this year, and that's the player. Like I think everybody wants to take Joel first. I like the versatility of Paul George, you know, having multi-position eligibility. But the player that's going to see the best value out of this thing is Maxey. He's going to see, you know, they're not going to be able to double him at all. They're not going to be able to double Embiid at all. Like,
right,
but with
right.
those guys sitting, it's like his usage is going to go through the roof, man.
Who did you grab DeJounte Murray?
I grabbed DeJounte Murray, man.
I see. I already know what it is.
Steals, assists. You know me,
It
bro. Like,
doesn't even have your name tied to it. I'm just like DeJounte one. Yeah, it had to be N.
Yeah, at the end of the day, man, I take players and I try to win categories. And there's some players that just are categories that I like. Assists, steals, and efficiency is really what I look for. And I think when you can get those at, you know, especially for a guy that's going to be playing on a winning team, I think a lot of people are undervaluing what the impact that this signing was for the New Orleans Pelicans. So, and as I'm looking here, man, I'm trying to look for some more undervalued names. There's another one I kind of like here. I don't like taking him, but I think the value in fourth round, Kawhi. I gotta pray. I'm praying he's on the court. Praying.
There's a point of risk and reward, right? Like I think if you're getting a Kawhi Leonard in the fourth round, if you're getting Joel Embiid in the second round, somewhere in that second round, I'd say probably like mid-second if he falls that far aggressively, you got to take him. And I'm only saying that because yeah, it's going to be a headache, but as far as we know, at least on Joel Embiid's side, he's actually healthy. They're just telling you in advance, yo, this dude isn't going to be playing every night. He ain't playing back-to-backs. Like they're already putting it out there, but you could still get the value when they're actually playing. And once Fred VanVleet went, that was too long for him.
Yeah, he's on fourth.
That's crazy. Damn, this is going to be a tough pick. I'm going to go, Zion makes sense, but I'm going to go here because I like him.
That's your boy, Jalen Duren.
Well, yeah, Jalen Duren. There's another guy there that I need to.
You got to pick him up rather quickly, huh?
Why is he so buried in there? But that was a mistake. Going back, I would have taken Emmanuel Quickly there, not Jalen Duren. For some reason, my draft board is all kind of messed up right now. The bigs. There's a lot of bigs out there still remaining. Wondering when that run's going to happen.
It's kind of weird how the bigs fall, but I think that's the nature of fantasy though, because they really only help 4 categories, right? For the most part,
right.
Field goal percentage, rebounds, blocks, and then if they get like either good points or good turnovers or whatever. But I feel like big, like when I go categories, the reason why I go so heavy with like trying to find assists is we've talked about this in the past. Is assists is a really hard category to find, like later especially in deep. The year.
Yep.
So I think, and if you find assists, the only thing is when you find assists later, that's like literally the only thing they do. If you get Tyus Jones, you know it's low turnovers, and you're getting like 8 points to 10 points a game with like 8 or 9 assists. So I think that's the one thing when you can find assists early, whether it's like 4 or 5 assists a game at maybe a forward or center, like find that value where you can.
Yeah, and that's where like I like AD because I think he can get sneaky assists, like
Yep.
three assists a game. Same with Jalen Duren. I think we're going to see a little bit more progression in his playmaking. Um, Scotty Barnes, obviously, he's going to probably compete with quickly for the most assists on the team. But yeah, I got to oh, wait. Okay. I was looking at Derek White there. I love what he can do defensively. You talk about it a
Yeah.
lot about getting those positional players that do stuff, better than others. And, defensively, you can't have a better guard than Derek White.
He's
I'm gonna
super
go
underrated
Darius
too.
Garland here because I need some assists.
Yeah. I like
Um,
Darius Garland too. I feel like he's a little underrated because he doesn't really get a whole lot of rebounds. Not a big defensive cat guy, but
no.
for what he provides scoring and assist wise, and he's what great. I think he's pretty good at the stripe too, right? 80,
Yeah, very good at the
80%.
stripe. I think the thing with him is like him and Donovan Mitchell just didn't mesh last year. And I think it was a combination of they didn't really get to have a lot of on court chemistry because they were both hurt at different times of the season. Like, Donovan Mitchell only played like 50 something games last year, and
Yeah.
Darius Garland didn't play many. I think he only played like 57. So these dudes just got to see the floor together and actually get some time together. But yeah, I like Garland as like a cheap assist guy. I think he can get at least a steal a game. So for what I'm building here, I think he kind of fits.
Yeah, and I've been, I like that move. And what I think for like, I've got a lot of defensive cats already, and I know that I have some pretty good value here. What I'm going to continue to do is build on like just building overall like depth at the positions, right? So I want to start off the framework of like, here, let me get my categories built in, the ones that I know I can find outliers, and then I want to find guys that I know are true and tested. And one of these guys is Vucevic, right? Obviously, for me, Vucci Main, he's a staple, and obviously, losing a guy like Caruso. This team is going to be going through changes, getting Lonzo Ball back now. Like I think that there's some optimism here for me with Vucci, and I mean, what is he now? Like probably year 12. Like he's been around for a while
Yeah,
now.
he's getting old and he's definitely declining, but I'll still I think he's one of those bigs that just constantly falls because like, oh, it's tried and true, pretty boring, like probably in that Tobias Harris category of boring, like, oh, he's just going to give you 18 points and 10 rebounds and like 4 assists. What's wrong with
Yeah,
that? Take that
nothing wrong
value,
with that.
man. Like he's a top 50 player, or at least going to be hovering around there. So if you can get him in the 6th round, like, let's go.
There's a couple names that also went after him: DeRozan, Randall, and obviously in new roles, new teams. You got DeMar DeRozan now with the with the Sacramento Kings, and you got Julius Randle now with the Minnesota Timberwolves. What's your outlook for either one of those guys? Do you think that they now that they're Julius Randle obviously in an elevated role, DeRozan's probably going to be a little bit more, even though DeRozan does DeRozan, probably a little bit less on his end. How are you feeling about both those two players?
I'm not really drafting much of DeMar DeRozan because as you said, like, I mean, I feel like DeMar DeRozan will do his thing real life basketball wise, but like fantasy, he's pretty much the same guy, 25-5, won't hit threes, doesn't do much for stocks. Like the free throw volume, that's always good, but he's just kind of one of those middle round guys, like, pick your poison, Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, DeMar DeRozan. I kind of have them all in the same bucket. Um, Julius Randle, though, like I think he's kind of being disrespected. I think he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder, pretty much being, I think it was more of just like the people question, like, oh, can he perform when the lights are the brightest? And I think
Right.
now he's going to have plenty of space to operate. He's used to working with a big man like Mitchell Robinson, Rudy Gobert, rim protectors that always kind of clog the paint. But he can dish it, and I think he's playing with Anthony Edwards. He's going to be the second option in that offense. So I think his fantasy value actually went up because we were still trying to figure out how he would even fit in with the New York Knicks and how they
Right.
have all their depth on their squad.
Yeah, especially after they got Bridges, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, the writing was on the wall for him. But I think in Minnesota he'll be good. Like, and I think that's the thing is if Ant is ever off the floor, they can run the offense through Julius Randle, which he probably prefers anyway to have a bunch of miscellaneous pieces and not other star power out there. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that move. I see you picked up Cam Thomas, man. Cam Thomas, obviously, probably stepping into a world of opportunity here without Mikal Bridges there. Obviously, had a career season last year.
Mm-hmm.
You buying a All Star type year for Cam Thomas?
I don't think he'll be an all-star just because the Nets are going to be trash. But at the same time, that doesn't mean he can't be good for fantasy. And that's where I'm at with it. Like 30% usage rate last year. That was with Mikal Bridges. and they didn't really do anything to bolster their scoring output. So I'm like, well, if he's going to be the center of attention, that's a nice little 25 points per game I just scooped up in the
Yes.
sixth round there.
Yeah, and especially when you can find like good scoring late, that doesn't cost you a lot, especially elite
Yeah.
scoring. I'm all for that too.
Yeah, and I think he'll be surprisingly more efficient than people think. Like I think he can shoot 46%, which with my build, that's not going to hamper my team too much in field goal percentage. And obviously know what he can do from beyond the arc and free throws. And I think we would be surprised on how he locks in defensively. He's actually a lot bigger than people think. It's like 6'3". So, you know what I'm saying? I think he could actually have like he's going to have a little statement year where he's going to have to, be financially motivated to get that contract extension. So, yeah, I do like Cam Thomas this year.
What's so for me, like when I'm going through and I'm looking at my team right now and I'm going through, it's about the seventh round. Now you start looking at like complementary pieces. Where are your holes at? Like you're trying to address some things. Where are your strengths at, and do you lean into them? Is there a point where you give up on a specific category? Or are you like, let me find balance later, let me find upside later? Like talk to me about your mid-round strategy, because I think this is the hard part for people. This is where, how do I build my team out? How do I find value? So as you're making your pick here, talk to me about your mid-round strategy, because this is like where I think you win your league. Like honestly, I think this is how you can find the most value.
So this is where I'm actually hunting for value. Who are those guys that are probably been overlooked, or something's going on that the draft board isn't favoring this guy? The first person that comes to mind, I just picked up Brandon Ingram, 3 positional eligibility. Trey Murphy's hurt right now, so like I think he has a little bit more leeway in terms of his minutes per game. But then also like this is the number one person next to Zach LaVine who needs to boost his trade stock, because like they're not going to pay him that contract. So the inevitable solution is, hey, trade him. So hey, if he balls out, then maybe that's an opportunity for someone on the open market to be like, hey, I'll take on Brandon Ingram, offer him a new extension, whatever the case may be. I don't love Brandon Ingram. Like he's one on my like no draft list, but at round 7, I was like, I got to do it. And the same goes for anybody else that I'm drafting round 7, 8, and 9.
You said he was on your do not draft list?
Oh yeah, he's on my do not. Yeah, I didn't think he was gonna be that good, but then like Trey Murphy got hurt, so I kind of changed my tune a little bit. But
yeah,
again, I'm not taking him in the 5th round where he was projected. I'll take him in the 7th though. Right. And I think this is also the time where you can take some more risks of like, if you like the way your core foundation of your squad looks, take a couple risks, get those guys in advance that may not come back to you, that kind of make your team look as better as it does, because I think this is where you can take some calculated risk and something. I was actually if I didn't see Brandon Ingram there, I was going to reach for a guy that's probably not going for another 2 rounds easy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, the one thing about reaching is that sometimes you can get the player later. So I typically like ADP more than anything, right? Like I try to stick around like ADP, and I know you can't draft every player, but I do find value in like making sure, especially if there's a guy who you feel like is super underrated, there's probably somebody else in your league who's seeing that same value. So sometimes you got to make that move a round or 2 ahead. I don't typically like doing it, but if there's a player that you can find, I'm not mad at it. Ain't mad
Yeah,
at all.
the way that it seems like there's some value, and I think the bigs are going to start to go now. I just saw Jakob Poeltl go off the board. Now we're getting, yeah. Oh, is it? You tell me you just drafted. I thought you was going to get Bogdanovich.
Nah, I just took he doesn't, you know what? So position eligibility is a big thing. Like he had power forward eligibility last year. He doesn't this year. Only shooting guard and small forward. So I liked having him at the power forward. I took Michael Porter Jr. instead.
Okay.
Position eligibility is a big thing, and I know you can add it on throughout the year. Are you looking at that when you're going through the drafts too? Oh, Walker Kessler. I see you got Walker Kessler, but I was looking at him too.
Yeah, so Walker Kessler, the only reason I drafted him is because he's going to be starting, and it's going to be hard to compete with anyone who has Wembanyama on their team in blocks. But having AD, Walker Kessler, and this other guy that I'm about to pick up, I think he'll be available. I think I'm going to have a pretty nice little competition with him. This is where I've been scooping up a lot of the bigs. So you mentioned earlier, like bigs tend to fall. Yeah. And even if they do, like, I think you can actually wait. Like I took Jalen Duren a little bit earlier than I initially intended to, but there's like probably 3 or 4 bigs in the last, give or take from round 7 through 11 that would have no problem taking and waiting on. So then you just stack up on guards and forwards and then save the back end of your draft for those centers. Because the one thing about playing on Yahoo, man, they got them 2 center defaults for your roster, so you got to have at least someone capable of manning that center spot.
Right. And I also think it's ways to find sneaky value, right? Like me and you played in the league last year, and I think throughout the year that was I think the difference between you and I versus some of
He
these
took
other
my
guys.
guy.
They took your guy Middleton.
Nah, I didn't even see his ass in there. That's funny. Man, fuck that just fucked me up. All right, I'm just gonna take this guy then. That's all right.
Oh, Zach Edey, huh?
It's early, but this man's he's already shown you, man. He Walker Kessler light.
Yeah.
20 minutes a night. That's all he needs. And he looks like you see that drop step? My man's doing Shaq drop steps now.
I did not see that.
Yeah, he's playing bully ball. And I don't know. I feel like he's going to be at least like, you can count for 10 points, 9 rebounds, good shooting splits, 2 blocks. I mean, that's all I need for a pick in the 9th round to really kind of round out that efficiency that I was trying to creep back up on,
right,
and get some stocks too.
Around these values, I'm looking for specific categories, right? Like a lot of times I'm looking for who can be outliers. I always end up getting a guy like a Clint Capella, somebody that I know is like super dominant in field goal percentage and rebounds and blocks and has those weeks where like he literally will win you a week. So I think for him, it's about staying healthy. But like in this round, I don't mind taking a guy like that. It was between him and like Daniel Gafford, just somebody that I'm looking for like specific outliers that if I start them, they have the opportunity to win me a category or two. That's typically the route I'm going here. And I'm also looking at one other player here. I was alluding to this earlier, but waiver wire is your friend. So make sure you're not drafting players that you're stuck on too. Like later, you either have guys who you will start or maybe super high upside guys that you can drop, because in these daily leagues, you want to have about 3 or 4 roster spots that are fluid.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I'm never married to, the last 2 picks of my draft. Like obviously you want to draft with some upside just in case an injury happens or some significant role change happens, but the odds on that happening for everyone in your squad being undroppable is unlikely. So, you know what I'm saying? Like leave a little bit of opportunity for yourself. Like draft some secure guys that, like, hey, this, like a Bobby Portis to me is always one of those guys that like I end up drafting because something's going to happen, or he'll just get like decent enough minutes that I can keep him around as a 6th man. But you know what I'm saying? And once you get to like rounds 12 and then like, I'm ready to drop those guys if I have to for a hotter pickup.
Yep. And it happens quick too, because I would say like very similarly to football, during the first week or two, you could find gems. There's players we just completely miss on. We miss out on the roles, or it looks like there's an increased usage that we just didn't account for. It always happens. There's 1 or 2 guys that end up being like last year, Dante DiVincenzo, I would say, was one of those players who like just took on an increased role and we didn't see it coming. Grayson Allen is another one. So
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Dante DiVincenzo because he is the next person on my roster.
You got him right now?
Bro, I think he's gonna play like a hybrid role for them. And like Mike Conley's Mike Conley, but he's old. He's like 36. Yeah. And they've already shown that like Dante's gonna play point guard. He's gonna come in backing up Anthony Edwards. They needed his 3-point shooting. So like I think he's just gonna find his way on the court, one way or another for at least 25 minutes a night. And for how efficient he was last year, like he looks like he's a guy that can help a lot of fantasy rosters, especially in 3-pointers made, steals, as well as assists.
No, and obviously we seen how it looked like there's a chip on his shoulder too from that trade. We saw how he was with that Knicks sideline the other day, man. So I don't know. I feel like around like I love that pick, and I feel like you can always find value in guys like that because they don't have the name value. Right? Like there's some people down here who were like starters. Like I look at a guy like Al Horford, right? Has been a consistent guy. His name is always going to be elevated just because he's the name Al Horford. Where there's some other guys down here who are probably better talented, more talent and better for your fantasy lineup than Al Horford is at this stage in his career.
Yeah, like I just had a choice of picking Al Horford and I took Denny Avdija because just for where the Portland Trailblazer situation is, like they traded for him, very favorable contract, but like this guy can fill up the stat sheet in a lot of different ways. Free throw percentage has something to be desired, but I love what I saw from him in Washington last year. He's like a sneaky assist guy for the forward position, real good playmaker. So I think at this stage, I'd much rather have his upside than someone we know like Al Horford, who's not going to play on back-to-backs and pretty much is who he is.
Did you hear Chauncey Billups came out and said he thinks that might be the best player on the team? I thought that was a pretty interesting.
I mean, it's not Scoot.
Yeah.
It's damn sure ain't. It damn sure ain't DeAndre Ayton. So
not yet, man. And I really liked. You know who I really liked last year was Anthony Simons. It just did not.
I love Simons too, man. Like I feel
good,
like I feel like he's gonna get traded. Like I think at some point, like he's tired of losing. You know how long he's been? Has he been in the league for like 5 or 6 years now?
Yeah, it's because I remember he came out doing the dunk contest, and and he had to kind of bide his time with Dame, and it's like I don't know. I feel like I thought he was going to take that next step as a scorer, and it seems like it's just not on. It's not,
bro.
He's
going into his 7th year in the league. Like he has never. I mean, yeah, he's never really experienced winning like that. You know,
imagine playing that long and like just not winning.
Yeah, it's time for him to get a new destination here.
I have a pick that I'm going to make. I don't know if it'll make it back to me.
What you thinking?
I think so. I want to talk about him, though, because the Splash Brother thing, right? We're seeing Buddy Hield, and I might be giving my hand away. That's fine. But we're seeing Buddy Hield play like this super Splash Brother role with Golden State here throughout the preseason. Obviously, he's been coming off the bench. Is there a world where Buddy Hield is shooting like hitting like 4 threes a game this year, like just going kind of crazy? Because I kind of have this weird feeling like Buddy Hield plays the exact same role as Klay Thompson did. Like I don't feel like it's that far off.
It's not. I think that the one thing that I'm cautious about is like how many. Like I think he's a streaky player, right? Like DeAnthony Melton's going to be in the lineup. You know, obviously Brandon Podziemski is going to be starting. So like, I think he's going to play this like hybrid 20 minutes. If he's hot, he'll stay on the court. If he's not, he's going to sit on the bench. So I think it's like pretty much threes. He's going to be a nice threes guy that I think if you're deficient in that, you can take him in the late rounds just to kind of even that out, kind of like how you would play Klay, because Klay's not going to do much outside of scoring and threes anyway. So I'll kind of treat them the same, but I think he's worthy of being drafted if you're looking for some threes for sure.
Yeah, and there must be some dudes watching this chat right now because we just seen Buddy Hield get scooped up right as soon as we start talking about him. So shout out to you if you watching right now. I know we recorded, but still feel like it, Brad.
I tell you what, man. Like I actually think that this for participating in a random mock draft, like it was actually pretty sharp. Like there's not that much. Like usually this is the time when I'm playing with random people where it's like, oh well, this guy's still here. Like obviously. I'm actually having to search my draft board a little bit. Like I'm digging into the trenches for some of these guys.
Good. Well, and I think that's a good point, man. It's like mock drafts. Sometimes they're a little undervalued, but mock drafts are really the best way to get like ready for your league. If you haven't done a mock draft, I would highly suggest getting in and not just watching one. Like this is good to get information, but also like participating in one so you can get a feel of the draft and like where you can find steals, because even this process is helping me find some players. And I really like my team right now, but there's some opportunity that I missed just going through this mock draft right now.
Yeah, I think that I definitely didn't have to reach in certain places that I did. I'm definitely guard deficient, which I think I'd probably have to make some in-season trades to kind of balance that out a little bit. But overall, man, I actually feel like I like my squad. It came out pretty well. Love my bench. I think that there's a lot of upside on my bench. And this last guy that I'm about to pick, Taylor Hendricks, I think rounds it out pretty well.
You got the dynamic duo there, huh?
Well, him and Kessler.
Yeah.
I don't know if I call them a dynamic duo, but it's something. It's leaning into the whatever Danny Ainge decides to do.
Right.
Whether that's move John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, whatever. Like I think eventually, you know what I'm saying, either Walker Kessler's going to get moved or John Collins is going to get moved. And either way, Taylor Hendricks looks like he's going to be starting. So I'm good for it. Who are you looking at? I like that Shaden last pick. Maybe that's like a little drafting stash.
No, I took Russ, man. Took Russ with the last pick. And we talked about this earlier. If he ain't getting the minutes, he going to waivers. I just took him just in case somebody wants him in a trade, baby. Because sometimes you can trade these players just because of their name. So
man, if that was Russell Westbrook in a points league, I'd be like, yeah. But I would say the one thing that's going well for Russ is that Jamal Murray does not look good. He is not healthy. We could actually see Russ be more impactful than I think a lot of people anticipated. I mean, he's on what, like a min contract? Like he just decided to like go there. He actually could have some fantasy relevancy here. And like, we know what he can do. Like, as long as you have a a team that can stomach his free throw percentage and his turnovers, like he's good.
Well, you don't got to play him all the time either. That's the good thing is like
That's
he's
right.
a
Yeah.
player you can like spot start him, and if you just need and see how he's playing, right? Because there could be a matchup where they're like, "Hey, we're sitting Jamal Murray, and now you want to play Russ." So it sounds like in Denver they're like, "Hey, we just want Russ to be Russ," which is the vibe that he's giving off. But obviously, that remains to be seen with Russ because we've heard that before.
It always starts off sweet, and then all of a sudden it's like, is Russ the problem? Is it the offense? I don't think he's actually going to have that problem in Denver, man, because I feel like it's an ego thing, right? And the whole LeBron James saga when he was in LA was like, it was all about Bron and how they didn't match and da-da-da-da. You don't have those issues with Jokic. Jokic just goes out there and plays. And like, I feel like Aaron Gordon knows his role. Michael Porter Jr. probably going to get an expanded role now that, KCP is gone. They need someone that can consistently stretch the floor. So I actually feel like this is actually a good place for Russ. He's going to literally be the slasher, drive, kick, get the pick and roll, initiate offense outside of Jokic, which honestly, Jamal Murray was the only person that was able to do that effectively over the last few years. So it's actually a good move for him in fantasy, I think.
It's funny because we're getting like the big version of Russ, which Jokic is, but we're probably going to be seeing point Jokic throwing lobs up to damn center Russell Westbrook. Sometimes it's going to feel like it's going to be crazy because those two both play for stats. So
I don't know. It's going to be. I actually think he's going to play real well with Aaron Gordon. Like something about their his athleticism. Like Russ has always been good at feeding those guys that are athletic and like throwing alleys and stuff like that, and looking them in the short corner and all that. So so I feel like Russ is like probably one of the underrated picks that you, as you said, worst case you drop him.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we come out, we see 15 minutes, 20 minutes a game, just drop his ass, but it could surprise if he's playing like 30 minutes a game or 25 minutes a game even, and just giving us like good production. I don't know. I think Russ, it's not the greatest pick because we know the inefficiencies, but I think it's a good upside pick. And like you said, easy to cut bait.
What's your team looking like here? I'm seeing James Harden, DeJounte Murray.
I want you to rate my team, man. So I'm going through. I have James Harden to start off at point guard, DeJounte Murray, Kawhi. So I'm a little Clipper heavy there. Tobias Harris, thought that was an underrated pick right there. Going to Detroit, they're going to ask a lot of him. Chet, Vucci, and Capella there at the center position. Try to balance it out with, I didn't get enough bigs, but I try to balance it out with good threes, steals, and assists here. Michael Porter Jr., Jordan Poole, Marcus Smart in a bounce back effort this year with Memphis. Amen Thompson for some defense. Conley and Westbrook there for some assists late. But what do you think of the squad?
So I think you crushed the back end of the draft. Getting Jordan Poole where you got him, I think that's a very low risk. So like the problem with Jordan Poole last year was that people were drafting him in the 5th round, and then they were disappointed with the fact like, no, that's not a 50. He's not a top 50 guy. Now top 100, and he could have the ceiling of a top 50. So I think where you got him is exactly right. Amen Thompson was the pick that I was hoping would come back to me, and he didn't. That crushed me. I think he's gonna have a breakout year, and for what he does, I saw him shooting threes yesterday. Like if he has that in his bag, like it's a wrap. It's a wrap. He's already one of the most athletic wings that we have in the league, and then you add in a jump shot on on top of his defense, like that's just gonna be scary. I wanted Mike Conley too, and then you scooped him up. So pretty much you took all the guards that I was looking for at that stage.
We got trade pieces. You know what I mean? That's the thing, man. Like you come out of a draft and maybe I feel like obviously I didn't get enough bigs, and that's an area of deficiency. But I feel like that's something I'll have to do is work this year now to try to find bigs. And I think that's part of the essence of category leagues too, right? Like you have to go through, and when you build your team, you got to know there's a lot of mid-season moves you got to make. How you feeling about your squad? You want me to go over it? You want to talk about it?
Let me give you your grade. I give it a strong 85. You know what I'm saying? Like it's definitely a playoff team. Weaknesses in certain places, but like I think ultimately that can be worked out in the course of the season via waiver wire or trade.
Yeah, I feel like rebounding for sure. I would be losing that category almost every single week.
Probably blocks too.
Yeah, it would really be on Chet.
You really just got Chet because Vooch ain't really doing that anymore. Capella will probably get you one a game, 1.5 maybe. Yeah, so it's really just blocks and rebounds that you're a little bit light on. Probably field goal. Your field goal percentage is probably going to be not too good either.
Yeah.
Sorry. So like it's all right. So you're down in like 3 categories, but now that I'm looking at it, yeah, you actually should be all right because I think the bigs that you got, your turnovers shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, turnovers are always the only players I'm looking at turnover wise. Right here,
Pool,
this guy
pool,
James Harden, and right
pool,
here, this
Russ,
guy Jordan Poole.
pool, Russ,
Yeah, Russ.
and James. That's it.
All right, let's move on. Let's see what your squad talking about, man. Obviously, you got Maxey here, Scotty Barnes, Darius Garland. Talk to me. What you liking your squad?
I give it a B, but it's more like an 83 B. You know what I'm saying? Like could be like a B minus. I just don't know. It could go a lot of ways. Like I like the Cam Thomas pick late. I like the ED pick. I actually like my bench, but I just think that I just have a lot of redundancy. It's like a lot of the same guys that just do like a couple of things, but nothing really great, which I don't know that. I think I would probably be like a 6 fighting for that 5th, 6th spot type of team.
Yeah, you'd have to work. I think you'd have to work throughout the year. The only thing I see on this is like I don't see a lot of like
No
3-point
assists.
shooting. I don't see a lot of like steals. That would kind of be my thought on this is like steals and threes. But I think other areas like your bigs are so dominant that it's gonna be tough to beat you in like field goal percentage. It's gonna be tough to beat you in blocks and rebounds. So I think if you find a way like throughout the season, but that's an easy fix though, is finding 3-pointers throughout the year or finding guard play, not specifically assists, but just guard play in general. I think you could probably find a way to do that. You just don't have a whole lot of like guard play outside of like Dante DiVincenzo is probably like
I mean, that's pretty weak if that's like you're pointing to that as my
that's like your
guard
wing. You know what I mean?
play.
Like just your pure wing. That's real. I mean, you
Yeah.
got Barnes and Maxey, but like when I think of just like wing play, I'm thinking Dante
Yeah.
DiVincenzo is like what you got.
Yeah. I think you said that pretty well because the one stat that I'm not worried about covering in the draft is threes. Like I can pick up threes on
Yes.
waivers. And I'm looking at Jeremy Sohan. If he doesn't work out, even though I know he's going to be starting, I kind of pegged him as more of like an Aaron Gordon type guy. But if those efficiency numbers aren't there, I'm cutting them for somebody that can give me, a couple threes a game, maybe an assist or 2.
When you got major upside here, because if Zach Edey's more than what we think, if Cam Thomas is more than what we think, Denny Avila is more than what we think, it's like you have really good upside on the bench too. So I ain't mad at your draft, bro. I think it's closer. I would give it more like an 85. I wouldn't, what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
I
I was on the B minus
Yeah.
ish. You know what I'm saying? Like I think so. One of the things I think it's easier for me as I've done a lot of mock drafts this year. I think it's easier to build around guards than it is a big man. And when you start off with a big man, like it's nice to get those rebounds and the field goal percentage, the blocks, potential. But I think there's just more versatility when you draft the high end guards because they just do so much, and especially in those first 3 rounds.
No, I like your. I mean, I guess we're gonna take a big though. Anthony Davis, he provides you like 5. He's a 5 elite.
Yeah, he's 5'2" guy.
Yeah, I mean? So I think that's if you're gonna take one, take him.
Right.
But I like how this played out. And like I said, I just think this is just a manipulation thing for you. It's how do you balance this thing out? Because I think I think once you get the threes, you get a little bit better with steals. This is gonna be a hard team to beat. So you can find that. I think you can find that throughout the year.
Yeah.
All right, but let us know, guys. Let us know y'all thoughts on our drafts, man. We have fun doing this mock draft. We will be drafting a real team here very soon. May or may not be on live. We'll figure that part out. But until then, we'll see you guys. Drop comments for us in the chat. We'll get to them on our next show. Peace out.
Peace.